confirming that, but multiple eyewitnesses have said that they thought there was some kind of smoke bomb let off immediately before the shooting began. Now, remember, they are in a chaotic scene. They're in a very loud bar. Often what we hear from witnesses in these instances as they first emerge with that mixture of adrenaline and terror is not entirely accurate. So we'll wait for the sheriffs to give us the final word on whether that was indeed the case. If it was, as the sheriff himself said, it would speak to a certain premeditation in this attack. But what we learned as the headline in that press conference was that the 911 call started coming in at 11:20 local time. That's 2:20 a.m. on the East Coast. Within 3 minutes, a sheriff sergeant and an officer with the California Highway Patrol were on scene. The sheriff sergeant, Ron Heelis, and the highway patrol officer approached the front of the Borderline Bar and Grill. The sheriff sergeant was the first through that door. He was met by multiple shots, and as we now know from Sheriff Dean, Sheriff Sergeant Hillis died from those injuries. And then as other officers moved in, they found the horrific scene, 11 more victims inside the Borderline Bar and Grill, and they also found what they described as the shooter himself dead. Sheriff saying not clear whether the shooter killed himself or whether he may have been hit by a bullet from one of the law enforcement officers. It appears more likely, given the timeline, that he killed himself, but we do not have that officially yet. The sheriff describing a quite horrific scene inside the Borderline Bar and Grill. He said there is blood everywhere. The shooter's body is still inside. Obviously, the bodies of the victims are still inside. Another 10 to 15 people, the sheriff estimated, were wounded in this attack and have been taken to local hospitals. But it's obviously very early now in the investigation. The sheriff talked about looking at terrorism as a motive. He said, we do that obviously these days, given the state of the country, given the state of the world. It is something we look at, but he said we have no indication at this point that there was any terrorist motive. But of course, all of this will change over the next few hours as they dig deeper and deeper into what has been a horrific few hours here in Thousand Oaks, about 40 miles north and west of downtown Los Angeles. The Borderline Bar and Grill had a couple of hundred, we believe, largely young people in it last night. It's college night on Wednesdays. There are at least three fairly large universities in this area: California Lutheran, Pepperdine, and Azusa Pacific. And students from all of those, as we understand it, were attending. I spoke to some of them as they came out. They were all horribly shocked, as you can imagine. We spoke to one U.S. Army vet. He was the one who said that the sheriff's deputy was shot right in front of him. He then helped carry that sheriff's deputy to a police car. I asked him, given his experience in the Army, what he thought of the condition of that officer. He said he was unresponsive, and we now know that tragic news directly from Sheriff Dean himself, that that sheriff sergeant first through the door because he heard shooting. He knew there was an active shooter there. He went through that door. He paid with his life. Back to you guys.
Jonathan, just to describe the area, when the sun comes up, this is a very nice area, right? And a lot of the Pepperdines and those students who live on the coast, you can cut right through the Malibu woods and get up there. So it's very accessible, correct?
Yeah, Brian, I'm sorry, our IFP's dropping in and out. I think you're asking for a description of the area. This is, Thousand Oaks is a very nice middle-class suburb, 40 miles, as I say, north and west of L.A. It's right, the bar itself, right off the 101 freeway, which is one of the major freeways, runs north along the coast, if you like, from Los Angeles in this area. We're in the heart of the area known as the Valley, and as I say, a lot of colleges around here, and this very much a college bar. And in fact, Wednesday nights are described as college nights by the Borderline Bar and Grill. So largely young people. The sheriff himself confirming as well that the average age he believed was between something like 21 and 26. So it is likely, as we learn the identities of those 11 victims, the actual patrons of the bar, that they will, in the majority at least, turn out to be very, very young people. On top of that, again, let's not forget the sheriff's sergeant, the first through the door, shot multiple times by the shooter, a veteran of the sheriff's department for several decades. I believe the sheriff said 29 years he had been on the job here. And you heard Sheriff Dean himself very, very emotional, saying he used to go to the gym with that sheriff sergeant. He was a stand-up guy, a great guy, thoroughly committed to the job, and certainly at 11:20 local time last night, he showed that commitment as he heard shooting still going on when he arrived, went through the front door, and was met with multiple bullets that eventually cost him his life.
Yes, survived by his wife and a child, was very close to retirement and good friends with the sheriff. Thank you so much, Jonathan. We'll continue to check back in with you throughout the morning. Let's bring in Mitchell Hunter. He's 19 years old, of Simi Valley. Apparently was in the bar, and we'll find out when we talk to him in just a second, was in the bar and broke through some of the glass to get out. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us what happened inside the bar last night?
Hi, I was on the dance floor, then we got off the dance floor, and we were on the right side of the entrance, and then he enters through. He starts shooting with his gun. I originally didn't think him. I couldn't believe it, so I was looking at him. He was wearing a trench coat. I didn't see any headgear on him. I just saw black hair, and he had a lighter skin tone. And then I was looking at his gun, and it was a pistol, submachine gun with a short barrel, and it had a really big magazine, and he was just popping off shots like nothing. And once I realized that everything was, going down south, and everyone was kind of ducking, and then me and Tim, my friend Tim Munson, grabbed the girls we were with, and we were dragging them off to the side behind the wall so we could get away. And then the shooting stopped for a couple seconds, and I looked up, and, I could have swore I saw a smoke grenade. I know the police aren't saying that right now, but I saw the smoke from the barrel of the gun, and then I saw the device on the ground, and it was leaking smoke, and it looked like a smoke grenade. So I saw that, and then I ran, I grabbed a chair, and I broke it through the glass, and I kicked the chair through, and then I heard other people running around after that, and then I broke the glass through with my hands, and then me and my friend Tim led the girls outside, and I guess some other people followed behind us. And as we were coming out, or before we came out, like sometime before that, the gunman started shooting again, and then my friend got hit in the shoulder. And then he was screaming my name, and he said, Mitchell, like, I'm hit. And then I grabbed him, and then we ran behind this dumpster in this wall. And then we stayed there for like 10 minutes, and we were waiting for an ambulance or police. A couple cops came, and then the second round of shots started, and he shot at least like 20 rounds off. And it sounded to me like they were outside. But I guess they might have not been. But it sounded to me like they were close and outside. But we were in the middle of the parking lot, so I don't know. And then 10 minutes after that, more cops came. And then about 5 minutes after that, someone came and picked my friend Tim up. And then they picked the girls up.